Tonight, Trump indicted, a first for a former president. Republicans blast back.
I think the unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States on a campaign finance issue is an outrage.
And the latest on red flag laws and mental health issues in the wake of this week's school shooting. Plus, raising faith leaders for tomorrow.
And we see so many families, so many children, teenagers that are lost and don't know the way.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. A historic indictment. Welcome to Faith Nation from our studio in Washington. I'm Caitlin Burke. Tonight, fallout over the indictment of former President Donald Trump. A Manhattan grand jury voting to indict Trump over hush money payments made to an adult film star. When asked for a reaction to the charges this morning, President Biden didn't have much to say.
Your reaction to President Trump's indictment?
Are you worried this will further divide our country, the indictment?
I have no comment on that.
Mr. President.
Possible protests in the wake of the indictment?
No, I'm not going to talk about Trump's indictment.
Republicans, however, all over the airwaves, blasting the move by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Trump himself calling it election interference. CBN's Matt Galka has the story.
The indictment from the Manhattan grand jury makes Donald Trump the only current or former president ever to be charged with a crime. The investigation, led by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, centers around an alleged $130,000 hush money payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. The payment allegedly made before the 2016 election over an alleged affair the former president denies. Trump responded in a lengthy statement that read in part, quote, "This is political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history." Trump's Vice President Mike Pence defended him on CNN shortly after the news broke.
I think the unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States on a campaign finance issue is an outrage. And it appears to millions of Americans to be nothing more than a political prosecution.
Other Republicans rushed to Trump's defense and targeted the DA's motives.
It's duplicitous charging. They're trying to smear the guy. They're trying to take cases that nobody else would take and resurrect them. This is literally legal voodoo.
I think the Democrats know this has nothing to do with the law. They're sending a message, and the message is they will use any power that they have to interfere in the next presidential election.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy tweeting out a promise to hold Bragg accountable. Meanwhile, some Democrats preached patience. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tweeting, "Mr. Trump is subject to the same laws as every American. There should be no outside political influence, intimidation, or interference in the case."
The indictment remains sealed, meaning the exact charges are still unknown. The former president and the leading GOP candidate for 2024 is expected to turn himself in next week with an arraignment Tuesday. The New York Police Department is increasing security in anticipation of possible protests. Matt Galka, CBN News.
Thanks, Matt. Here with us now is CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, the former president has already been fundraising off of the possibility of an arrest in this case. As we head into the 2024 race for the White House, is this indictment a gift to the Trump campaign?
Oh, it's the gift, and literally, Caitlin, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Look, Alvin Bragg may be Manhattan DA by title, but he is, in essence, turned into a de facto chief fundraiser for Donald J. Trump. He is the top fundraiser now for Donald J. Trump. And that mugshot, which we expect to be next Tuesday, will be plastered everywhere. And you can be sure that if you thought fundraising was big this week, wait until next week when that mugshot gets out. I have so much to say, Caitlin. You got to stop me. You know what? I need to filter myself. And I don't mean filter in a bad way. I just mean there's so much to say, but I'm sure you have a lot of other questions. But I think I've answered at least your initial question.
All right, let me redirect you a little bit. So we have a Democrat prosecutor charging a former Republican president. What are the implications of this for future presidents, Democrat or Republican?
Well, and this is the problem, right? I mean, this is the crux of the issue and why many Republicans, even ones that don't like Donald Trump, are coming to his defense because this is a dangerous road we're going down. Really? We're going to do tit for tat in the future? I mean, look at impeachment, Caitlin. I mean, impeachment, we know about the Russian witch hunt, as Donald Trump calls it. And we know about the Ukrainian phone call and all of that. Look, they went after Trump. They couldn't stand Trump. And now what? Now you see Republicans calling for Biden's impeachment over the border and X, Y, Z. I mean, where is this going exactly in our country? And I think that's the big problem. Look, Democrats, let's talk about the left for a second. It's not Democrats necessarily, but it's the left in this country. They have been obsessed with Donald Trump. And in the process, they think it's all about Donald Trump. It turns out this now becomes nothing about Donald Trump. He is a symbol at this point for the weaponization of the federal government. And it's not just, Caitlin, about Donald Trump. That's not what this is about anymore. What about the pro-lifers that have faced persecution under the FACE Act, but from a Biden DOJ? What about the parents at school board meetings where the DOJ is coming after them and wanting questions answered? We can go down the list here. This is what this is all about at this point.
You mentioned that mugshot image. We know that President Trump will be arraigned next week. Does this mean he'll be taken away in handcuffs? How do you expect it to play out?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see the handcuff shot. I think we will obviously see the mug shot. He will be fingerprinted. My sense is we understand this is going to be about 2:15 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday of next week. They'll figure out a way to most likely get him into the building without any sort of fanfare, though if Donald Trump wants it to be a different way, and you know Donald Trump and fanfare, he'd probably like the walk shot. He doesn't want the handcuff walk shot, but he wouldn't necessarily mind the actual walk shot without the handcuffs. We'll wait and see whether or not he goes with that, because it really is going to be up to him as to how much he wants to make this more of a spectacle than it already is. But I don't expect a walk shot, Caitlin. I expect a mug shot, and that's pretty much it.
All right. David, thanks for your insights as always. We will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Can't wait, Caitlin.
Well, following that horrific mass shooting at a Christian school in Nashville, lawmakers on the Hill are pushing dueling solutions over how to ensure the safety of school children. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy focusing on the mental health aspect of the American mass shooting epidemic.
Not just going to be a legislation. We've got to have a severe conversation here with this country. We've got to deal with mental illness. We've got to see what's driving individuals to think you would go to innocent children, a Christian school, to shoot in, to literally write about it. I don't think one piece of legislation solved this.
Law enforcement still searching for a motive as to why Audrey Hale killed 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults on Monday. Investigators say Hale was under a doctor's care for an emotional disorder. Still, she was able to purchase 7 guns legally. To that end, Democrats want more restrictions on buying guns, including red flag laws and universal background checks.
Red flag, extreme risk protection orders that can help identify individuals who are potentially on the verge of doing something harmful to the American people while possessing weapons at the same time. Universal criminal background check legislation has the support of more than 90% of the American people.
The violence in Nashville reigniting the debate and exposing a familiar partisan rift over gun control. Joining us now is Donna Rice-Hughes, President and CEO of Enough is Enough. Donna, thanks for coming on Faith Nation. Police say this latest school shooter had a mental health disorder. Is it possible red flag laws are an area where Republican and Democratic lawmakers can come together in terms of gun reform and access in America?
I think there's so many issues that we can come together on, and certainly that would include anything to do with protecting children. And we know that data is showing us that there is an increase in emotional and mental devastation that our young people are suffering. And certainly we need to be aware of what those are. And in particular, when it comes to guns, you know, who can safely own a gun and who cannot.
You mentioned the increase in the ways that young people are suffering. The mental health issue is front and center when it comes to social media. School districts across the country filing lawsuits against companies like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. How have these platforms contributed to the youth mental health crisis?
Oh, well, they're highly addictive. We know from various hearings, and if you haven't seen them, just Google. I mean, it is extraordinary how these companies are putting profits over safety and monetizing misery, as someone said. They have actually created the algorithms to keep their platforms highly addictive. So that's one issue, and to keep these kids so hooked on the platforms that they may not even be enjoying it anymore. In fact, many of the polls say that the kids just feel like they have to keep up rather than the fact that they're enjoying these platforms. The other thing is the harmful messaging and the harmful content and the dangerous people that are using and exploiting these platforms to get to children. And so, for instance, there was a newspaper in England, The Times, actually did a survey of all the sexualized choking images on Pinterest and on Instagram. And basically what they found was that these teenage girls were thinking that sexualized choking was okay and was acceptable. We've seen the rates of sextortion go up sky high, 265% online enticement of kids through these platforms. So we've got to rein in big tech. That is really important. And one of the things that we're doing at Enough is Enough is calling on reining in big tech and these companies to turn the safety default features on. Right now, they've got the mechanisms, they've got the technology, they've got the software to make sure that these things are not happening. So they need to be reined in. They need to turn them on. This is very, very important. It cannot all fall on the shoulders of parents.
So important to hold these companies accountable. Donna Rice Hughes with Enough is Enough. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Coming up, the president surveys the damage in Mississippi. Operation Blessing is helping victims on the ground. How you can help too after this. The president and first lady in Rolling Fork, Mississippi today, one of the areas hardest hit by an EF4 tornado on March 25th. Biden spoke with state and local officials along with survivors and volunteers, reaffirming the full support of the federal government.
In the midst of all you're dealing with, I know that it's overwhelming. You got to figure out how we can help, what you need. That's why right now, we have 300 federal personnel on the ground, including FEMA's disaster survivor assistance teams, to ensure a well-coordinated response to get you the assistance you need.
CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground in Mississippi and is partnering with local churches. In Rolling Fork, OB is working with Pastor Shannon Crawford of Rising Star Church. After the storm, Crawford immediately mobilized to begin serving his community by distributing food and other goods. On Thursday, Operation Blessing provided Rising Star with a truck full of water, prepackaged meals, and cleanup supplies.
Operation Blessing is providing us with food and different things that's needed in order to feed the community. Right now, our food levels are depleted, and so now we're able to restock, resupply, so people can get the canned goods and get all the non-perishable items that they need, because we know once it comes, it's going to get taken right out. So we appreciate them for fulfilling this need for us.
Members of the Operation Blessing assessment team are also taking time to talk with and minister to victims of the tornado. If you would like to help Operation Blessing bring help and hope to the people devastated by this tragedy in Mississippi, you can call 1-800-700-7000, go to cbn.com or text OBDR to 71777. Moving overseas, a major blow to Russia. Finland now set to join NATO in the coming days. As the war in Ukraine rages on, Turkey had been a last holdout over Finland's bid to join the Western military alliance. On Thursday, Turkey's parliament giving way, ratifying Finland's application and lifting the final hurdle in the way of their entry, which requires full support from all 30 members. Russia's other Nordic neighbor, Sweden, is still waiting to join NATO. Turkey and Hungary holding out there over security concerns. Joining me now is Brad Bowman, Senior Director of FDD's Center on Military and Political Power. Brad, thanks for coming on. Finland is Russia's immediate neighbor. How big of a deal is their entry into NATO?
Finland's entry into NATO is a very big deal. You know, both Finland and Sweden have had at least decades-long policies of essential neutrality, and Vladimir Putin's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine has forced them to change that. And so they sought membership in the alliance, and now all members have approved Finland's admission, and they'll be joining the next few days. This is bad news for Vladimir Putin. He blames the invasion on NATO expansion, which is, of course, ridiculous in my view, because NATO is not an offensive threat to Russia. NATO is not Nazi Germany. NATO is not Napoleon in terms of a threat to Russian invasion. All this will do is simply make future Russian aggression against the alliance more difficult, because it'll create more dilemmas for Russian military planners. So the Finnish military is not huge, but it's capable, and they have a lot of artillery pieces, for example. In fact, more than the United Kingdom, France, and Germany combined.
We know that Russia is raising the stakes, Putin vowing to place strategic nuclear missiles in Belarus, Ukraine's northern neighbor and a Russian ally. Could this war turn into a nuclear crisis?
Anything's possible, but the playbook we've seen Putin playing from the beginning is anytime he sees the United States and our Western allies about to do something to help the people of Ukraine defend their homes, he rattles his nuclear saber. To trying to scare us and not to not take the step. And I think if he were to use nuclear weapons against the alliance, that would be the worst day of his life for him and would be unwise and is unlikely. And so I think we should always be cautious and look for any indications that he's actually taking steps in this direction. But I think generally speaking, we should assume this is nuclear saber rattling designed to intimidate the West so we don't help the people of Ukraine defend their homes.
In terms of potentially provocative moves, Finland's entry into NATO paves the way for Sweden to join the Western military alliance as well. Could we see Russia lash out if Putin feels penned in on all sides?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything provocative about Finland or Sweden joining the alliance. I think that is what Putin would like us to believe. That's what some on the far right are saying. I just don't think it withstands scrutiny. NATO is not an offensive threat to Russia. I think Putin knows it. The reason he doesn't like NATO enlargement is because once a country joins NATO, he can no longer invade, bully, and coerce that country. He invades Georgia and Ukraine, non-NATO members. He doesn't dare touch NATO. That's why he doesn't like NATO enlargement, not because it's a provocation.
All right, Brad Bowman with FDD. We appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.
Americans losing their religion. That's according to a new poll. When we come back, a grassroots initiative to bring young people back to the faith. Welcome back. Recent studies show America's young people are losing their religious faith. A new poll reporting only 31% of people under 30 believe religion is very important. One Mississippi church has started a grassroots project to teach young people the value of faith, starting with the 10 Commandments. CBN's Brody has this story from the Mississippi Delta.
Community Chapel Assembly of God is nestled here in Shelby, Mississippi. It's a small town and it's located in one of the poorest regions in the country. No matter its size or economic hardships, however, it's the people here who show what it means to invest in the lives of children, raising up faith leaders for tomorrow. Community Chapel sees its mission as being a soul-winning church.
Tell Jesus right now.
That's why Pastor Ruthie Hooper focuses on feeding the souls and bodies of neighborhood children, most of whom walk here for a guaranteed meal.
They come to me and they'll tell me that they don't eat breakfast. And they would take that sandwich back home and they'll split it up into 4s so that they can divide it among the other siblings.
Ruthie and Curtis Hooper see the area suffering from a spirit of depression, both socially and economically. Less than 2,000 people live in Shelby, with a median income of just over $14,000.
Young people say it's nothing here to keep them here, because once they get out of high school and go to college, they don't come back. You look at this town, it doesn't even have a decent grocery store.
Given this reality, it's important for the Hoopers to meet the needs of the young people spiritually, so they can take that with them through life, wherever they go.
Honor your father and mother.
For Community Chapel, that happens through the 10 Commandments Project.
What about the 9th commandment? You should not tell lies.
What started as a grassroots project in Mississippi now serves churches nationally through a 6-week course available for church communities and individual households. It focuses on fundamentals, which includes memorizing the 10 Commandments.
If they just simply have their child memorize the 10 Commandments, they can call American Family Radio. This is his size. This is my mailing address, and we'll mail him a free T-shirt with the 10 Commandments on the back.
Pastor Joseph Parker, who started the project with his wife, explains why the lesson is simple yet profound.
Jesus is to be our #1 priority in life, so we should find time to help put the Word of God in our children's life if we don't find time to do anything else.
Because one of the greatest things we need now, we need the parents involved with their kids. See them come to church with them and learn that word for themselves. They could pass it on to the young kids.
As ministries adopt the project and begin planting seeds of faith, they hope to see children like these grow into faith leaders throughout the state and beyond.
And we see so many families, so many children, teenagers that are lost and don't know the way. And the only thing that's going to help them is a revival.
Reporting in the Mississippi Delta, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Spring in Washington, D.C., and the sights you don't want to miss. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, spring has sprung in the nation's capital, and the evidence is all over the district. The White House Gardens, considered the oldest maintained landscape in the U.S. at more than 200 years old, full of flowers right now, and considered a popular tourist attraction in the spring and fall. Just a short walk from the White House and one of the most famous sights in D.C. this time of year, thousands of blooming cherry blossom trees around the tidal basin. They were a gift from the mayor of Tokyo over 100 years ago. Peak bloom was a little over a week ago, but you can still find them out there. The bright blooms attract over 1 million visitors to the Washington, D.C. area every year, and all I can think about is the traffic. Last weekend, the Metro had the most riders since 2015. So if you live here, beware. That's going to do it for Faith Nation. Have a great weekend.